Do you find yourself staring at the canvas and thinking that perhaps I should have just taken a nap instead? Does your self-esteem suffer when art studies just don't work out no matter how much you try? If it sounds like you, perhaps you deserve a nice break while we talk about how as artists we should be kinder to ourselves. Hi, I'm Wind, and I've been studying art on my own for about 4 years now. Things started off a little rough, but I've definitely learned some things along the way. Personally, my own art journey had lots of ups and downs, so I hope I can impart some of the lessons learned today so that you won't feel as lost as I did. I also have a time lapse of some random PNG tuber that I made recently in the background, and I hope you enjoy. Art is communication. It can speak many words when there is none, and yet the humble fellow artist often feels lost and lonely when faced with the challenges that art brings. When I first started learning digital art, I found myself engaging in toxic thinking patterns that hindered my ability to enjoy the process of making art. I hope with this video, you can also learn to be kinder to yourself. Part 1. The eye learns faster than the flesh. If you've been drawing for some time, you might have heard of the idea that our art eye learns faster than our physical hands. As humans, we've been exposed to the different shapes and colors of the world the moment we learn to perceive. This means that our visual library is constantly improving as we experience life. However, learning to write or draw, that requires deliberate practice. One of the best ways to improve our drawing is to learn from others. And when we do so, we train both our hands and our eyes. But since our eyes already have a head start, we might spot mistakes before we can even learn how to correct them ourselves. This mismatch in skill often leads to frustration and burnout. Trust me, I've taken tons of month-long breaks just because of this kind of burnout, and somehow as artists we always come back to art eventually. If you're currently feeling down about this mismatch, I want to reassure you that this feeling will pass. Just like all other emotions, they come and they'll go. But I cannot guarantee that it will go forever. However, there will come a day where your hand and your eye will be very close in skill, and when that happens, you'll find yourself enjoying your artwork more often than not. If you're waiting for such a thing to happen and it feels impossible to you, let me suggest my favorite pick-me-up activity. Whenever you feel down, pull out your old work. It can be as simple as scrolling through your old social media posts, or even the sketchbook that only had 3 drawings in it. Look very closely at these drawings. Do you see any mistakes or changes that you would have done in the past that you would never ever be caught dead doing now? Old me would have forgotten to on her pen pressure sensitivity settings, and I would be caught dead before I do that now. Or old me might have taken 3 days to do line art, but now maybe just 1 day might suffice. If you spot any of these improvements or changes, or mistakes that you'll never make ever again, congrats! You have improved since then, and that's something to be proud of yourself for. It's important to remind ourselves of how far we have come, but what about my poor artist babies who are still feeling down about your work? Maybe let's talk about the next toxic mindset. Part 2. The right time for you. All artists crave improvement and validation. At least I think we do. We don't all need to be famous, but it would be nice if our loved ones supported and cheered us on. In the pursuit of improvement, we tire ourselves out with numerous tutorials, studies, courses. It's wonderful, but it can easily lead to burnout. When I first started doing art, I found it really hard to face my lack of ability and how often I fail when I did this kind of studies. No matter how long or hard I really tried, I just felt like my studies didn't even match 10% of the original. Old me would have been so upset and say all kinds of demeaning, mean things to myself. Do you also engage in similar behavior? Do any of the following sound familiar to you? For example, I'm useless, I can't even pick the colors right, or I'm hopeless, I can never attain even 50% of that person's art skill, or look at her, they're way younger than me and yet I can't do shit. All these kind of thoughts feed into our negative self-worth and makes us burn out. One of the things I noticed about studying art is sometimes timing does matter. Maybe this is not the right time for you to learn a particular topic and you'll learn better a few months down the road. I know it sounds a little bit vague, but I'll create a few scenarios for you right now. Imagine you're tired from a long day of, say, work or school. Trying to practice art at this time would be difficult because you're already mentally and physically drained. Your heart's in the right place, but your body just needs rest. If you force yourself to practice, you might find yourself easily frustrated or cranky, or even staring blankly and zoning out on your canvas. The same can happen if we are hungry or emotionally drained. So, what does it mean if we feel this way? The right time to study then is when you have fulfilled your basic needs as a human. Many times I've caught myself going without rest, drawing for 12 hours at a time, and then wondering, why do I hate everything I'm drawing right now? When I have a good nap or a long night's rest, I find myself looking at my own art with more clarity and kindness. But of course, that's not the only kind of right time. Think about how long you've been doing art. If your loved one comes to you one day and say, I want to learn to do art, would you recommend them to learn anatomy straight away? Or would you encourage them to do something simple? Start off with learning their art tools and also maybe doing simple gesture studies or life, like drawing from life. Just like how many of us will be patient with our loved ones, we need to be patient with ourselves too. Of course, easier said than done. However, the point I want to make is that we all need to learn at our own pace. Not just how fast or slow, but also what we learn needs to match our skill set. If you find yourself studying something for a week or a month and you're still not improving, or there's lack of understanding no matter what, I highly suggest you move on to something else for a while. Switching topics doesn't equate quitting. When we switch, we give our brain some space to rest, and also it lowers our general boredom. It's the same as if we were to eat our favorite food all day, we might eventually get sick of it. When we switch study topics, we might also stumble upon similar patterns from the previous topic and the current topic. This will help us learn way faster. So for example, learning anatomy will make us better able to observe anatomy in real life pictures or in real life in general, right? And then at the same time, when you start to observe better in your references, you also can learn your anatomy better. So leveling up in one topic will oftentimes lead to increased EXP gain in other topics. For me, I found it easier to draw hair when I shifted from learning how to draw semi-realism to chibi art. And when I finally came back to semi-realism, I had more courage to experiment and saw better results because of that. So the right time for learning will always come when you give yourself the space to learn the topics that are according to your own pace. This is because with experience, we see similar patterns better, and there is no need to compare your own pace with others, because the only person you need to compare yourself to is yourself. So to recap, how does one find the right time? Number 1, make sure your needs are met. Eat, sleep, hydrate, and socialize if possible. And number 2, don't stick to a single topic for longer than a week or a month if you really feel like it will make you burn out. Now, let's move on to the final part of the video, and this is the most important thing I want us to remember. Even if everything else goes in the trash, remember this one. Part 3. Do good by yourself now, not later. Have you heard of the phrase, you can only learn to love others if you learn to love yourself? As someone who struggles to be kind to myself, I don't think that's true. In fact, a simple Google search will show you that it's easier to love others than to learn to love yourself. Hence, learning to love yourself isn't a prerequisite to just love in general. But why am I talking about love in a video about art? Because I find that being kind and patient with our own art is tied to our self-worth and ability to be kind to ourselves. Hence, I want you to remember that you're enough with or without your art, with or without improvement. Improvement in skill is gained. Oftentimes, we think of not improving as a loss of time, loss of energy, loss of materials, and so on. However, time and energy will be spent no matter what activity you plan to do. Even if you did or didn't do art that day, you still need to go to bed at the end of the day. Thus, I think we should think of doing art as always gaining. Every ugly little line is a gained, lived experience. We simply do not lose. As such, this brings us to the idea that we should do good by ourselves now and not later. But what does that even mean? Doing good by ourselves means honoring our body needs, of course, but also expressing love to ourselves, even if we feel incapable of doing so. I'm sure most of us would rather show love to others before even complimenting ourselves in public. This can include having trouble accepting compliments from others, struggling to find positive things about ourselves when we're asked. Similarly, struggling to find improvement in every art piece that we do. Some days are good and others are bad. The day where you do good by yourself will never come if you keep putting it off. There is no need to love or enjoy your art only if you can find it good. If you saw someone else constantly hating on themselves and just putting down their art all the time, when do you think they have the time, space, energy, or even capacity to learn to love their art eventually? Even if you get crazy good, as normal humans, we always carry a tinge of self-doubt. It's normal, it's valid, and it's just part of life, right? So start enjoying your art no matter how ugly it is, because you did the work, and the effort, you deserve to be proud of it. Alright, let's say you're willing to try, but how does one learn to do good by ourselves now? My favorite simple activity is expressing gratitude to ourselves. Yes, it might seem a little cringy at the start if you're not familiar with reflective practices, but just trust me. And just try it for a week. Similar to a gratitude journal, if you have ever heard of it, I just want you to write down one singular thing you enjoyed while you're doing your art at the end of the day. So let's say today you did art. At the end of the day, you write down one thing. You can write it on any kind of paper, scrap paper, or letters, old sketch papers, just any kind of surface, even on your phone if you really want to. But I find physical paper works best. And then you just write that one thing you enjoy about your art. It can be about the experience, it can be about your feelings, it can be about like more technical stuff. Even if you only did 5 to 10 minutes of drawing that day, that's enough. You can find something positive out of that experience. So if you're somebody who struggled like me when I first started trying such activities, here are some examples you can observe. Number 1, I enjoyed the peace that drawing brings me today. For me, sometimes I have a bad day and drawing is the only thing that makes me happy. So if you're like me, maybe that might work. Number 2, I liked how my drawing communicates my mood today. It can be positive or negative mood, that doesn't matter, because just like I said, art is communication, and the fact that you can communicate your feelings through your art, that's really awesome. Not everybody is able to do that. Alright? Number 3, I'm proud of myself for drawing despite not feeling like it. Of course, I don't want you guys to force yourself to do art even if you don't feel like it, but just like going to the gym, sometimes being there, being present, it brings you into that space and you feel ready to do the art. And if that's the situation you're in, then you should pat yourself on the back for being present and doing your art practices. And lastly, I'm proud of myself for giving, say, anatomy a try today. I think studying sometimes is so boring, so rewarding yourself after that also helps a lot. And also praising yourself, saying, hey, I did really good. I could have sat on the couch and watched Netflix today, but I chose to do anatomy, and that's good enough. From all these examples, I want you to be able to see that it can be as simple as you want and as complex as you need. If you start doing this practice today, you are essentially practicing mindfulness, which is a great skill to have, and it will teach you to be more kind to yourself over time. I hope that my words today help you feel better about your own art. No matter where you are in your art journey, I hope that you don't give up and continue to create. Finally, I'd like to mention my Etsy store. I sell streaming assets and also do commissions. My favorite things to create are definitely emotes, so if you need any, hit me up. Like and subscribe for more art videos, and as always, be safe, hydrate, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.